Okay, today I'm going to tell you about Disney's Photopass and Memory Maker. Now, a lot of people get confused between the two. Disney's Photopass, if you've seen them around the parks, they're Disney photographers. They take your picture in such locations such as this, in front of the castle. They wear little tabas, they say Photopass on the back. Disney's Memory Maker is something you access to download all those photos that they've taken. They're normally linked either with your Magic Band or your card. If you don't have a Magic Band, then you just use the card that you get when you go into the park. Okay, with most Disney UK tickets, ultimate tickets, the 14-day ones, the 7-day ones, I think is included with as well. You get something called Memory Maker, which is included in your ticket, so take full advantage of it. As I said, Memory Maker and Photopass is just that. You go around, they take your photos as couples, rather than you trying to take selfies every 2 minutes. You use that, and it's a bit more professionally done. That being said, when they take these photos, you are in the Florida sun, and sometimes they're not correctly exposing their cameras for that sun. They shoot in a format called JPEG. I'm not going to get overly technical, I'm just going to explain that they shoot in JPEG. Those settings are usually baked into that file, and when you download them, you might be presented with over-brightened images. The main ones today you're going to see me using the most is exposure, highlights, color temperature, now and again, whites and blacks, and they're all found on the side. Now, I'm going to say this straight off the bat, when you go into develop mode, and I'll show you this in a second, you're going to use the panel on the right hand side and you're just going to work from top to bottom. You're going to leave a lot of them out. If you don't know what they are, just play with it and then reset it back to 0. You might find something that you like that I might not like, but you want to put that on your photo album and you think, great, that looks amazing, I'm going to do that, and I'm just going to do it to all my images. Do it, you're not going to get the same effect on every single image. So once you set your exposure and highlights, you'll find that different images have different issues with them. So that's where the sliders come into play. Don't go one extreme to the left and one extreme to the right. You want to just play with it, drag it slightly either side, and just feel what's right for when you first start out. I'm using Lightroom today. You don't have to. You can use free software that does the same thing. There's something called Pixlr X, which I've seen being used around a lot for JPEGs. For those who don't want to get into the Lightroom system, don't want to go the advanced route, or don't feel safe, or don't feel comfortable enough to do the free trial of Adobe Lightroom. I'll link below what I can. If I couldn't find anything, then I do apologize. But have a look in the description, see what I've said. Perhaps there's a link there that might be handy to you. So that's enough time wasted, let's get into it. Okay, so we're live, we're going to open up Adobe Lightroom. Okay, so I've just chucked a few sample images into Lightroom. As I said, this is more about, this one I thought was quite special because it was beginning of the Christmas tree trail. However, as you can see, she's been blown out and the sign isn't the best either, just looking up here. So what we're going to do, I'm taking you step by step. I might come back to this one later and show you a nice little trick. See around here where a bag is kind of reflecting a lot of that light. Unfortunately, a lot of the photos had this rucksack in it, and I ended up taking them out in Photoshop, but I'll show you how to do that later. Okay, so first thing we want to do is go to develop, which is up here on the tab. Okay, now there's a lot of blue light in this photo anyway, so the first thing we're going to do is drag down the exposure just a titch, because that flash gun has lit up everything. Now with the temperature slider, as you can see, as you go blue, it gets more blue, as you go back this way, it gets a little bit more warm. I'm going to leave that for a second. If we hold down Alt and hit the highlights, you can see all that there is overexposed. So if we bring it down a little bit, as you can see on here, if I bring down the highlights, you're affecting the sign. You can see Have a Magical Holiday. So we'll just bring this back to the center. We just bring down the highlights a little bit, go back to the exposure, just bring that down a little bit. Now into the whites. See how that affects it? The blacks. If we hold Alt on the blacks, you can also again see where that peaking point is, which is just there. Vibrance makes everything a bit more colourful. Okay, now in our skin, you can see it's a bit red. So what we're going to do is come down to the red hue slider, HSL slider. We just increase that ever so slightly. It'll just take that red out of our skin. Sometimes it's just about playing with the sliders just to see what you're happy with. As you can see, this is the after, and this is the before. The before, as you can see, you can kind of see this sign is kind of blown out a little bit, and you can see her skin tones are all over the place because of that white flash. We've managed to bring some of that back. Even though it's a JPEG, you can still do a lot of saving, which is great. Now, I'm not happy with the overall composition of this photo because you've got this big fence and you've got these bins here, which isn't very nice to look at. And you've got this guy in the background playing with a gate, and the sign is quite distracting too. I'll come back to that. I don't want to overcomplicate it just yet, but if we hit this button here, which is the crop, we can just drag this in and drag this in. Perhaps maybe we'll just get a little bit of holiday sign just to pop a little bit. So if we click done, and there we go. So you got the Christmas tree trail. Now, as you can see, it's a little bit fuzzy. So we've got something called sharpening we can do. We don't want to do too much. You don't want to go overboard with it. So if we go up to about 30, if we hold down Alt again on our keyboard and drag the masking up, we want to have something like that. And again, it just sharpens those details ever so slightly. So if we click Y, you can see that the sign has kind of got a bit more sharpness in it, if you could say that. And again, you can just make out the writing, whereas here was a bit, the C kind of goes, and we've brought back the C quite a bit. Okay, this one. This is where I want to show you what a gradient filter can do. We've lost a lot of the, not so much blown out, but you can see from the histogram here, we've got quite a number of highlights clipping there, just seeing it coming up. So what we're going to do is put a great gradient filter, so this little button over here. So what we can do, from the top down, we want to drag this filter just to the top of my head there. Okay, now what we can do, from 100% is going to be affected from this point to this point, and 50% from this point to this point. What we're going to do is go to the highlight slider, and we're going to crush those highlights. Gives it that nice effect. So if we balance out the exposure a little bit, just there we go. You can again just have a play around. I don't think it looks very good with contrast in it. It sucks a lot of the colour out of that dinosaur. Nessie, as I like to call it. So if we take off that, we're happy with that now. So click done. Now the overall exposure of the photo is quite bright, but it's not that bad. If we hold Alt and have a look at the highlights, you can see it's a bit of clipping, so just bring them down a bit. Shadows again. Shadows, just bump them up a little bit. Careful with the clarity slide. If you start playing around with this, one extreme is it makes it all dreamy and as if there's Vaseline on the front of the lens, and on the other side it just looks like you've been, I don't know, hit like with an animation stick. So be careful with that. We just want to get little touches to everything. Vibrance, don't go over the top of vibrance as well. If you bump that right up, the colour looks great, but it just looks so fake. So what we want to do, if you have a look in Emma's shorts here, what we want to do is kind of bring it up so those colours are just on the verge of popping, and you'll see the water and everything else gets a lot better. So you can just see that you got like that grey cast on it. Okay, the other thing I want to do, I know we're quite warm as it is, but if you warm it up slightly, ever so slightly, just gives it that extra punch in the colour of the face. Here we look quite cold and pale. Here now we look a bit more sun-kissed. Yeah, happy with that. Next one. This one, not going to be able to save it that much. It's, if you can see on the highlights, it's completely blown out. You look at my face. If we kill the highlights, look what happens. It's a horrible, unfortunately, outside blazing out sun, and he's used a flash as well. No amount of cooling or warming can do a lot. What we can do, black and white. If we black and white seems to have saved that a little bit, I think. As I say, it wasn't too bad with the colour in it, but I messed it up now after altering the black and white. You can always go back and do things, it's fine. Okay, this one, not happy. Through all the times they use the flashes during the day and everything else, at the night time they haven't used it. Here we're extremely dark. If you try printing this, you're not going to see a lot of us, and unfortunately because it's a JPEG, I'm not going to be able to do a lot with it anyway. What we can do is introduce a fake flash. Now this is a very clever thing to do. What I said about the graduated filter, if we drag one up from the bottom, right the way up to the top, maybe not to the top, maybe to just about, we'll play with it in a second, but if we bump up the exposure, like so, kind of produces like a fake flash. Now that's a bit too much, so if we drag this up just a little bit more, there we go. It's introduced like a fake flash. Click done, maybe, ooh, just, there's a lot of noise in the photo unfortunately. Okay, if we come down to let's click done on that first, let's just have a look what that looks like first. That was before, this is after, it's kind of introduced like a fake flash, see? It looks like a fake flash, it's quite cool. Right, if we come down here to vignette, if we put that in, kind of makes it less like I've just dragged a gradient filter up. Then if we come to sharpening, there's just too much noise in there and it just over pronounces that noise. So if we go to noise reduction, just smooths that out a little bit. Okay, so it's before, after. Nice little shot in Halloween. Unfortunately this was one of the only ones that we had, and as you can see it's brightened up Emma's face quite a lot, as long as we can see her in a dress because she loved that dress. Perhaps it's a little bit too strong. This is all personal preference, but again it's just brightened this up. I just put the image in, so there's like no detail in my face whatsoever, but here it just shines through a little bit better and it makes it a little bit nicer. Okay, moving on to the next. This is more about saving. This is quite distracting, but one problem I was found that it's not the best spot removal. So if we try this first, yeah, it's not too bad. Do you know what, that's quite passable. That's quite, you know, that's not too bad. It's not the best. Very happy with that. So you can keep coming back and forth, back and forth. It's just one of those things. Okay, bringing on to this one. Horrible, horrible, horrible day. I don't want to remember of that horrible, horrible, horrible day. Easiest thing, there is ways to change up the sky. Keep it simple. Click graduate filter. We're gonna go kaboom, and we're gonna crush any grey and turn it blue. A little bit better there, I think. Ball looks a bit better on this side as well. Again, we're working with JPEGs. There's not a lot we can do. Now this shot, I love this shot. It made me feel like a kid. But you know what? I need the exposure bumped up a little bit. I need a little bit of clarity, just a little bit. To really draw me in. Nice bit of vignette. A little bit sharper first now. Bump that up. Dun dun dun. Masking right there. Really makes it pop. Just drag it in. Makes it a little bit more dreamy. There's a little bit of vignette around it. That reflection I didn't like is gone from what I did with the other adjustments up here. I think it was in clarity, so I don't need to change that too much. But I wanted to put a bit more contrast into it, kind of just guess those colours blending a little bit better on his, see the colour differences in his suit, in his fur. Okay, just sort of brightened up my face as well a little bit, so you can see the smile, my happy smile. Big moment for me that was. Okay, so I'm happy with that one as well. So we'll just go back through them again. We've gone from, I just gotta do one thing. This is absolutely killing me. Again, I'm gonna speed this bit up. But just to show you, if I ever get you interested in this kind of editing, let me just show you what you can do with Photoshop. Okay guys, so that was that. Like I said, this was when we were only touching on basics, exposure, maybe a little bit of contrast, highlights, shadows, bit of clarity. We were only touching on minor things. Just get on that right hand side, you only need to adjust exposure and highlights when it comes to trying to defeat that Florida sun, and maybe sometimes using the temperature slider. That again, personal preference. Play around with it. You've seen the ones I was using to get back what I was looking for. Some of you might not agree with what I did in there. It's all personal preference. I prefer to chuck that up on my Instagram than some of the ones that were coming out. They use Nikon cameras, bigger cameras, a lot like what photographers call color science. They were shooting in JPEGs, so whatever's baked in at the time is baked into that image. They don't shoot RAW, so I didn't have a lot of control over a lot of things, so I was doing the best I could with what I was given in JPEG. If you like this, hit that like button. If not, hit that dislike button. Get subscribed. I'll be posting further updates. I might even do my own tutorials on things like Lightroom and Photoshop. There probably are better people out there, teachers qualified better than me to do it, but if you want to learn the styles I do, if you like today, then you can follow along with me easily. I'll be doing more stuff like that. I'll probably do a lot longer tutorials. I know this has been quite long. Thank you for sticking around if you did, and I'll leave it there. Thank you very much. I'll see you again. I don't know, if you want to get in touch with me and ask me any questions, you can do. Just leave a comment, or if there's a way to inbox me, be sure to do that. If not, email me, mattbeingbored@gmail.com, and I'll gladly get in touch with you. See you again.